So I think it's two things in my opinion. Number one, it's the depth of our history, how we began as a profession in terms of helping persons with disability. Where I don't know if we've hit the century mark yet, or probably not. I think we're close. But we have a long history of recognizing the value of all individuals and um, creating systems that would help people who have sustained injuries. Of course, beginning, with soldiers coming back from war, but, continuing on to this day of working with people with such a variety of, um, of disabling conditions that are interfering at this moment in their ability to function fully in their lives. So I think it's the that history, but I also think it's the blend of counseling with disability. So we're not just processors of paperwork to help people get a service. As rehabilitation counselors, our mission, our focus is bringing a counseling perspective to the relationships that we develop with our clients, and using that counseling relationship to help them, whatever their goals might be in the rehabilitation process. So I think that's the really cool thing about us, is the focus on disability, which has always been there, but also then the blending of counseling as a tool to help people achieve their goals.
Oh, thank
Yeah, so I think when I hear that question, of course I think of advocacy. Advocacy is a core principle of ours as rehabilitation counselors, advocating for equal access, for opportunity, for employment, for better understanding or acceptance into community um, venues for persons with disability. So advocacy is our core, but what I always thought was the most important aspect of the advocacy is our working, and this is what I think makes us unique, our working with our clients to inform them and help them to better understand their role in self-advocacy. Because our time with any of our clients, we're just you know a period of time that we have an opportunity to influence or to impact their lives. But that person is going to go on and have a lifetime full of joy and opportunity and challenges, like we all do. And I think that our bringing our knowledge of how to advocate for our client, but also our knowledge of how to help our clients to self-advocate, so that, what's the saying? Give a person a fish and they'll eat for a day. I'm so bad at sayings like this, but teach them how to fish, and they're good. They're good, and I think that it's the same thing you can say about advocacy. When there's no reason in the world why our clients, regardless of what their disability, cannot be empowered to understand the importance of self-advocacy and get really good at it, because over the course of our lifetimes, all of us need self-advocacy at any given point in time, and same goes for our clients. So I would think that would be, in my opinion, the most unique aspect of what we can bring to any kind of a counseling relationship.
you. Yeah.
I love this aspect of us, of rehab counseling, because just, and I know everybody's got really unique stories and pathways of how they got to where they are. And my pathway was really traditional until it wasn't. And my pathway was right after graduate school. I went into a rehabilitation hospital setting. So I never went the state federal route. I went into a rehab hospital setting, and I was in that practice area for about eight years or so. And it was great. I loved working at the hospital, and the variety of disabling conditions with the people that I worked with really was a great education for me, you know, as brand new to the field. So I learned a lot, and I really felt like I was able to make an impact on people's lives when they were at their most critical point in their life, having sustained an illness or injury. So the counseling skills, as well as the perspective that I learned at that point in time, of to always be grateful for what we have, because anything can happen. And that goes for our clients, that also goes for us. And as a person I've used a wheelchair all my life, so I have a personal experience with disability, but that really brought it home working in the hospital, of be really grateful for what you have. And to this day, that's something I live by, in terms of my own life and perspective, is you know I've got nothing to complain about. Unfortunately, people experience much more challenging and disabling conditions. So, I feel grateful that I have exactly what I have. But that's a side thing. So, from a professional standpoint, after the hospital, I flipped over and had an opportunity to work in an insurance company. And during my graduate training, and this was a long time ago, so I know things have changed in terms of rehab programs and graduate training. But at the time, the perspective was, you don't want to go work for the insurance company. They're the devil incarnate, etc. And but I did. And that began a 33-year career with that same insurance company, where I was able to apply my rehab counseling skills, not in direct client contact. So I didn't have that anymore, but I was able to work with people who were providing case management services. I was in management, overseeing staff who were providing direct client services. So I was able to utilize my rehabilitation knowledge and background in helping my teams to provide the best service to industrially injured workers, after they've sustained injuries. And then as I moved into more of the vendor management roles within my company, it was making sure that the vendors that were providing services to our injured workers were providing the best quality services. So even though my job kind of drifted from direct client services into really an opportunity area that I never would have perceived, coming out of graduate school, it was one that I never felt, disconnected from my profession. I never felt like, boy, that was a waste of time. I'm not using my rehab counseling skills. Every day I used my rehab counseling skills with the knowledge of disability, with the counseling perspective of dealing with difficult situations. And I remained connected to my profession by service, by involvement with professional organizations. I spent a lot of time with certifying bodies, CRC, now CCMC, with CORE in terms of accrediting organizations, up until the merger with CACREP. So I always had kind of one hand connected to direct professional stuff, as my career kind of took me in a path that may have seemed to be going offline, but I never felt that it was offline. It was just, you know, the direction that I felt my skills could best be used. And it, I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went off on a little tangent, but it shows the diversity, I think, and the opportunity that any person with a rehabilitation counseling background can pursue during their career. Aside from, you know, kind of what I just said, which showed a different direction, the how it evolved is it's kind of stayed consistent. I came into this field with a very strong professional identity. Um, to this day, as a person who, um, at this point, is, you know, retired, I always know that my opportunities to do something else are there. I retain all my certifications just in case, because it's important to me and it's part of my professional identity, even if I don't have a day job. So I think if the only thing I can say in terms of an evolution was the evolution from the direct client care to, um, you know, utilizing skills in more of a corporate setting. And you know, there were times that absolutely did I miss the direct client care? Of course. I think all of us who are counselors, you know, would find it hard to envision not working directly with people. But again, think about the fact that you are, if you're not having a direct impact on people and their lives, people who have sustained illness or injury, you're having an indirect impact. And here's an example that I will use, in terms of evolution. So credentialing. Let's use credentialing as an example. Anytime any of us have an opportunity to participate in or be involved with, sit on boards or do anything related to credentialing, like the CRC credential, specifically for rehab counselors, I would recommend doing it because you are having an impact, indirect, but an impact on the lives of people with disability. Because by setting standards of practice, by enforcing code of professional conduct, all of that, the benefit of all of those things will ultimately be persons with disability. If we're making sure that our workforce is as skilled and trained as possible and as ethical as possible, and the CRC is held in high regard, or any of the credentials, LPC or CCM, CDMS, whatever the credential is, the holding it in high regard and making sure that ethical practice is being maintained is going to benefit the persons that we care most about, which is the person with illness or injury or disability. So I think that's the evolution. Is even as I was not working directly with clients, I feel that my work that I've done over the years has ultimately, hopefully, benefited our clients, as the profession has evolved and as the profession continues to strengthen. So I don't think you can discount that in terms of influence. I think that's really important. And hence, just to put a plug in for professional involvement, I would really encourage anybody who, is interested in service to the profession to absolutely do that. Get involved, state, local, regional, national level. There are so many opportunities to volunteer your expertise. I think that's really important, and I think you'll find it rewarding. Well, there's a lot, but I think the one thing that comes to mind is the fact that we as rehab counselors focus on ability. I, I think if you had to whittle it down to one thing in terms of people understanding what we do, it is that when people hear disability or, limitation or whatever, they're thinking limitation. They're thinking, oh, disabled person, they can't do something, right? Physicians, medical restrictions. I mean, all the way from, maybe a person in home life to employment. You have to be able to, and if you can't do X, Y, and Z, then you're not employable or not able to come here. Or I think the focus sometimes in the world when they think disability is unable, inability. And what we do as rehab counselors is we focus on what people can do. And in doing so, we help our clients focus on their own abilities. And back to the teaching somebody to fish analogy, when we can help strengthen people's um, concepts and belief and perspective on their own strengths versus focusing on I can't walk or I can't lift or I can't do X, Y, or Z. I think that that's ultimately um, going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit society, and it's going to benefit our clients that we work with to be able to change the focus from inability to ability. And that is frankly, that's what we do, and we're really good at it.